All righty. Let's get this going. I think we are on. Somebody in the chat, let me know if we are on or not. Facebook's been running pretty slow. All right, so. All right. We got Chris Gloss checking in. What's up, Chris? All right. What is up, everyone? This is Harry the Big Dog, and this is yet another episode number 37 of the DJ interview. I want to thank everybody who's coming in from the replay. I want to thank everybody who's coming in from Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and all the various Facebook pages and groups. So I want to give a couple of shout outs to DJ Cam. He celebrated his 8th year having his radio station, freeagentradio.com. So if you are listening, check in, give him a shout out. The weather's been hot out here. So, and no rain. Good. I hear there's a couple of hurricanes going on. But it probably is not going to come to the Virginia or East Coast area. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on our next guest. He's representing Detroit, Michigan. What is up, DJ Derek from the Block Party?
Hey, Harry. Thank you so much for having me on tonight, man.
How is everything out there?
I don't have to worry about hurricanes, so it's like a little bit easier. But yeah, so I'm based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is kind of central, about an hour outside of Detroit. And the Block Party is my DJ business that I am partners with one of your previous interview guests, DJ Wes Estelle.
Nice.
So it's always good to be able to represent a little bit of our area, and tonight talk about a little different side of the DJ industry with a little bit more of the wedding side of stuff.
Yeah, so we're gonna change this up a little. Usually, I take the people on a journey, the audience on a journey of your beginnings, middles, and where you are now. But I think we're going to switch this up a little because you have an interesting part of DJing that you guys kind of mastered, and would love to know a little more about that aspect of it. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah.
Before we go, let everybody know your government name if you want, your DJ name, and when you got started DJing.
Sure. So I think in some ways following that format of kind of how we got started is a good way to get to where we are now. So my name is Derek Hall, and I grew up in this area and have worked around here, basically coming and going, but always ending up back in the Detroit area throughout my life. And my DJ journey never really got too far away from doing like schools and corporate events and weddings and things like that. And so that's been a slow process from when I was little to where we are now. And then the Block Party is our business that we've had now for about 5 years. And so that kind of slowly built out of my process of learning to DJ and learning this business and learning weddings, and then finally getting to a place where I felt really good about trying to open something that was a little bit more specific and could fill a niche in this area.
Now, here we're going to talk more about the wedding and the business side of the DJing.
Yeah.
You know, we've taken people on their journey, like I was stating earlier. They went on their journey of DJing and how they got started and who they're DJing with. But we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to talk more about, you know, prior to you getting into the wedding aspect of DJing, how did that all happen?
How did I end up in weddings?
Yeah.
So to just give kind of that quick history, because I think that connects the dots into why weddings made sense for us, for me, really. But my first exposure to DJing was middle school dances. And we had way more boys in my little middle school class than we did girls. And we would have dances and you'd get together with a partner. And because there were so many more guys, it was very hard to end up with a girl to dance with. And a lot of times I just got tired of playing that game. It was just, I'm just going to go hang out with the DJ. And then in high school, starting to notice some of the people who are doing the high school dances. And then going into college, so I played football. I was a kicker and a punter, so
You're still on the team. Still on the team.
Player or not. Yeah. But I played football, and then I'd hang out with my teammates on the weekends. I'd hang out with my housemates, and I started to get into playing the music for these parties and using like a mouse and a laptop, virtual DJ. And then I had like this $300 Best Buy like house sound system. And so if I didn't do one of my friends like house parties, which I'd bring the system over to them, then I would look around the neighborhood and try to figure out which house had most people on the lawn, go up to their house, try to find the owner, ask them, hey, you don't know me, but can I DJ this giant house party that is clearly already going great? You don't need everybody, but hey. And so I just had this sound system. And when I got done with college, I had a few of my friends who were getting married shortly after, and the first wedding I did was one of my housemates, and I had like 8 months to get ready, and I think I spent most of that time trying to figure out how do you DJ a wedding and getting gear. And I had just a little like plastic mixing board and basic speaker setup. And I remember, so we'll get into this probably a little bit more later of some of these influences, but there's this wedding DJ I'd found who mixed and had these mixes that he put out. And there's one particular section of a mix. I'm like, that's amazing. I want to use that. And I didn't know how to recreate that myself. So I'm even like, all right, I'm going to bite this little chunk of mix out of his and then kind of work mine into it and trying to explore what wedding DJing was in a lot of ways. Because I knew how to blend music. I was already becoming a selector, so to speak, but trying to work on how to put music together was something I was growing into. And then I had more opportunities after that. And I found that the way I wanted to go, the direction I wanted to go with this was to try to use turntables.
Right.
And I didn't have anybody around me that I knew had this type of setup. But I liked sort of the authenticity of it. I liked more than that. I liked that it was tactile, that it's something you can see, you can touch, and you have more control. And coming away from being this basement DJ with a mouse and a laptop, being able to actually touch and control things was really appealing. So my brother was going to culinary school in New York City at the time. And so I basically said, hey, can I come stay with you for a couple weeks? And I took classes at Scratch DJ Academy in New York City.
Nice.
And I'm like, if I'm going to invest in this, I need to know what I am doing. And so for 2 weeks I was there, and I saw Rob Swift mix and was teaching. And the thing that really blew my mind, though, was Grand Wizard Theodore came through.
Wow.
And he was just there for a few minutes, but he had a tone record and did his blindfold needle drop of playing that. I think it was like Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I'm just like, and he's just, I'm like, what is going on? And I think appreciating more than anything just how much time and practice these guys were putting into it, and understanding more of some of those founders. And I mean, some of the people you've had here for these interviews who helped set that foundation for me to show up in New York City to take a class and kind of get my start. And so that's kind of the quick how I got from being a little kid with my parents having a handful of records of Andy Williams, Beach Boys, Rolling Stones, some things like that, some Motown.
Right.
And then how that translated into just how I was comfortable interacting at a party, at a social event. And it allowed me to just be a part of that stuff. And then from there, starting to get those first pieces of like this as a service, this as a job.
Right. Nice. So you got past that. Now we're coming to how you became this big time wedding DJ, and and we'll get into the business aspect.
Yeah, the big time where I think I took $300 to go to Atlanta for a store opening. So it was like a 14-hour drive, and I think I got just enough money to pay for my gas and sleep in my car. So I started to get into this, but I had no experience. And so I didn't know how to advertise. I didn't know how to get into a company or what to even do. So I started finding stuff on Craigslist and trying to, essentially, it's weird because normally in a business, somebody comes to you and says, well, how much do I pay?
Right.
And on Craigslist, it's this like you're bidding everything down. And
so you actually went on Craigslist to solicit DJ jobs
to anybody who was looking for a DJ on this side of the Mississippi. So I think my first 10 weddings and this stupid store opening in Atlanta. I had a couple of weddings in Pittsburgh. I was in Ohio. I was in Indiana. I did all these outside of Michigan, but it was experience. I got enough money to get there and back. I don't think I made much more than that ever.
You just broke even every time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's $200-300, but it was a chance to start getting moving, and it gave me a great appreciation, I think, for where we got to now. But yeah, that's how I got those first like 10 weddings under my belt, when I'm coming from not having, really a club background, not having really a formal background, except for being this passionate like house party bedroom DJ. And so I took those 10 weddings and then applied to like 5 or 6 companies in our area. And, you see these ads, especially on Craigslist, where these companies would be like, if you can carry 35 pounds and you have a driver's license, then you are a wedding DJ. Like, oh boy. Like I had a radio friend a little later on, and I talked to her and her husband, and they, on the side, they were working for this company, and they were basically like employees number 2 and 3.
Right.
So the owner, he would take all the best new stuff, and then when they would go out, they'd show up at his house, and then he'd be like, "Oh, there's the pile of stuff." Like, throw together a setup. So I knew early on, like, I wanted to not be told, like, this is how we are going to do it. Like, you work within our box. This is the controller you use. These are the speakers you use. Like, this is whatever type form you have to stick to.
Right.
And I wanted to, like, I already invested in trying to understand turntables. That's how I wanted to play music for people. And so I found a couple of companies that looked like they weren't just this microwaved in a box type of event companies. And there was one that let me have my own stuff, and it's the same one with Wes that we both ended up working with. And so I got in with them, and after about 6 months of shadowing other guys, because I could mix music, I could do the DJ side, but running a wedding and being an MC and knowing all these little things to look for as you work with this team of people,
Right.
I had to learn a lot with that, and they taught me a lot of things. And so I did that for about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And I think I maxed out. I had about 83 weddings and events. 65 of those are weddings, so we're doing 2 or 3 in a weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, and then out of that, we finally got
2 or 3 whole weddings.
yeah.
Just you. So this company must have been kind of big.
Yeah, so they did photography, they did video, and then they had like 35 DJs.
Wow.
So now they had a great reputation. They had a good system of how they booked people and handled things. So I didn't have to do a lot of the business side of it, which helped me concentrate on just learning how to do a wedding, how to play music and all this stuff. But I got to a point with a group that big, and you're looking at that saying like, all right, so there's 35. And I may not be number 1, that's okay. But I'm not on the bottom. And I'm like, out of all these guys, all these different setups and approaches and styles and stuff, I'm like, I'm one of the few who mix.
Right.
I'm one of the only guys who does turntables. And so I said, if they're charging this much and everybody in that 35 has to hit this bar, some of them are under, some of them are over. So if the 34th, 35th guy is worth that much, what are your top 5 or 10 people worth?
Right.
And out of that, I can say like, all right, I know where their pricing is. If I just can figure out how do I advertise this, how do I, work my way into this from the sales side, I already have this reputation now. I've done this 5 or 6 years.
Right.
I know planners, photographers, venues. I've got the connections. And now I can bump that price above them saying like my product overall top to bottom is going to be better than that. And I know it's this, what that experience will be because it's just me.
Right.
And then it's just me and Wes. And we can say, hey, this is consistently going to be this instead of worrying what my 35th guy is going to be.
So let me ask you this. Dealing with 35 DJs, what happens when they don't have enough work?
So, and that's where we are right now. The thing with weddings overall is there are so many. And up until we got into the pandemic, it's not a matter of I need to go next door to my neighbor and take stuff from him. There's such a big ocean of events and weddings, school dances, all this stuff.
Right.
That you just need to figure out, how do you show people like you are the product that makes the most sense for what they're looking for. You're one of a handful of people in, New York City. You're going to have more people who are taking this approach. San Francisco, LA, Chicago. In Detroit, there's only a handful of guys who are saying, I do weddings, I'm good at it, we do vinyl, and we mix, and we have this kind of sort of club at a wedding type of thing. So when you are just a bigger, broader company and you're saying like, well, to feed all of our guys, we need to pull in thousands of weddings for the year.
Right.
You get to a place right now where they're having to reschedule so much stuff, and it's hard. I think they're down to just their core few staff, but I'm sure for a lot of club guys too, bar people too, like there's just not that work as much right now.
It's not there. So for everybody who's joining in, we have DJ Derek, and he's with the Block Party, and he's representing Detroit, and his specialty is wedding. He's a wedding DJ, so he does a lot of weddings. Now, you partnered up with DJ Wes. How did that happen?
So Wes and I met at a company event for the company that we were working with. That Wes had found them through Craigslist. He was starting to book stuff, and we kind of connected over the fact that we both did turntables and we both mixed. And Wes had recently, I think very shortly before we got together, he had done the tryouts for the, VH1, forget if it's VH1 or BET, the Smirnoff Master of the Mix.
Okay.
So he had done the tryouts for that, and that was something I had followed. I love DJ competitions. Red Bull 3 Style is one of the biggest influences in my career. It's one of the things I love to nerd out with, and I think it's such a cool way of like open format DJing. But he had done this, and then so talking about the process of doing that competition, of coming from doing like this East Coast hip hop background, and kind of comparing notes with some of that, it made it a quick friendship.
Right.
And for me at that time, I was starting to become a little more seasoned, where I'm experienced. I've figured out, especially with turntables and with our approach of like, how do we make this work within this company and the clients that they attract? And I wanted, beyond just being friends, at the time, I'm like, I want to make sure that he doesn't have to repeat some of the same mistakes I did as a rookie, because I didn't have a great mentor who understood what I was doing and my approach on things. I'm like, I kind of get you. Like, let me give you this tip with this, or, hey, I have this thing that I just replaced or upgraded. Like, let me kick this mic over to you, or, if you need an extra speaker or whatever. There are these things where because I've been doing this for a minute, you start to just pick up pieces. And I just really wanted him to succeed with that, because I thought it was important to have somebody else and to grow this concept of like real DJing and real mixing within what is really a very like polished kind of vanilla company. Like, when you are such a big corporate entity in the wedding industry and you're doing thousands of events, there's not a ton of flavor there. You can be really good at what you do, but you're kind of broad appeal.
Right.
And so to be able to have this specialty thing of like, hey, you can have your kind of very middle of the road company, but hey, we have some really special options. If you have somebody who comes in the door and says, I want something different. And so that was a huge deal. So at first it was just kind of this like, hey, we need to make this together. And this friendship over music and style. And then I saw how Wes handles people. And for me, I think the consistency between me and him is, yes, we use the turntables and we mix and we have this history of music and DJ culture and all this. But ultimately, like, our styles, our backgrounds, so much of us is very different. What unites us is that we are approaching each event, each client like, hey, I did my family wedding. I've done my best friend's wedding. I know what that feels like. I want to treat you as a stranger the same way. And I saw that with Wes, where is so much like love just for people, and then such a good sense of problem solving and adjusting. And you have to be decisive as a wedding DJ in the heat of a moment, right. But you have to do it gently and with a smile. And he really had that. And so even though we have very different backgrounds, and I mean, at the end of the day, like a black guy and a white guy who are trying to have essentially the same product together.
Right.
Very different backgrounds. And I think that's the thing that's been consistent. And that's huge because now with the pandemic, we've moved 70 weddings from this year to next year.
Wow.
And I think
that is a lot.
6 or 7 of those I've had to say, hey, I'm not available on your date, but Wes is. Your deposit still counts towards him. And we can move this over, and it's not the same experience.
Right.
Just like when we've had best friends book or siblings book, I'm like, hey, we could do the same great level product, but it's just going to be a different thing. Do you want to do the same, or do you want to change it up a little?
Right.
And it's the same when we rebook that of like, you are still going to get the one guy I wanted for my own wedding, and the person I still trust more than anybody else in the industry. Like I don't have Wes with the block party for, making this little army of DJs so that I get a cut from everybody.
Right.
I am much better off being on my own with how I want to do this, of saying, how do I have a consistent product? How does it, get to the level that we need? So if I'm telling you Wes is good, it's because he's one of my favorite DJs. And to be for making an army of DJs so that I get a cut from everybody.
Right. Hey, Wes,
I am much better off being on my own with how I want to do this.
You hear him?
Yeah, I'm better now. Well, I was struggling for a minute. I got it now.
You need a light in front of you.
Say it again, brother.
You need a light in front of you.
Oh man, we're good. We're on. We're popping. Can you see me?
Not really well.
Give me a second. Yeah, we're sitting here watching. We're having a watch party, bro. I got like 5 cameras going. Hold on, bro. I gotta see where I'm at.
I just wanted to break them on for a few minutes. You guys are killing it.
There we go. You
guys are killing it. Yeah, that's good. Now here. Echo. You hear us?
Yep, hear you loud and clear.
All right. So you guys are in Detroit, and Derek explaining how about you guys' relationship, and I just want to bring you in minutes and hear.
No doubt. I've been vibing, checking out the whole time. What's up, D? Doing good, bro. No doubt. It's dope. I've been sitting back enjoying, man. My cousin Mark is back. My cousin Mark back here checking. If I told you, got a watch party. My kids out there still playing in the yard.
Hey, you messed up my numbers.
Yeah.
You got people sneaking in.
They scalping tickets out here. It's Harry, my bad. I'll work it off, bro.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to a couple of people. DJ
DJ
is checking in. Yeah, it's an echo. Wes,
Yeah,
it,
I paused my Facebook. Let me close that and see if that works.
yeah. I know you want to, but we got a bad echo.
Okay, see if I can come down on my volume a bit or something.
1,
How's
2.
that?
It's still an echo coming from
I couldn't tell you what it is, Harry.
Put yourself on mute while I give you shout outs. All right. I still hear it. Okay. It's gone now. So we shouting out DJ P Nice. We shouting out Chris Gloss is checking in. We got Hugh Jensen checking in. What's up, Hugh? We got international DJ Tommy Lee. You have to do it like that. We had Robin Clark checking in. We got Darlene Thomas checking in. Wes, if you hear me, come back on.
Yep.
1, 2.
Yep.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is ask you to explain. Then I'm gonna go on mute because I think these things hear me. So explain your relationship with Derek. He just gave you a glorious shout out and everything about your relationship. So let us.
Yo, absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm sitting here, man, smiling, listening to him. But I do remember the day that we met, D. It was at the Tigers game. It was a company outing that we were doing with Mike Staff, man. They were just, I got to say, with Mike Staff and them, I giving them props because, again, that's how I met my man Derek. And, again, a lot of foundational things when it came to these weddings and just how to move about. It really fine-tuned whatever I had to bring to the pot. But Derek was just genuine from the gate. You know what I'm saying? Dude sitting there eating a slice of, his pizza, offering a slice and stuff, and we kick it in. We talked about, hip-hop, and it was an instant connection right there, like he said. And not to take away from any of the cats that were a part of the group. There was a lot of talent and a lot of different styles there, so they had that menu for people and stuff. But Derek and I, man, we would just, again, get more off the grid, more on the friend tip. The DJ turntable stuff really solidified that, and like you said, sped things up. And from there, man, we started doing a few things together, lightweight things. Like I talked about the lunch. I was just talking to my cousin Mark about it. Like he had a lunch party, and the block party, and it had a different kind of perspective in the beginning, and different things. And when things came about, we became that 2-man on the floor team. But his wife being an intricate piece of that, Claire, to show us and slow things down for us to take care of the business side, to make that match everything else that we were doing out there. That had to come hand in hand. So with that, it's this yin and yang, Harry. It's like it's the things where Derek is just like it's this proper trade-off, man, where it's just a constant learning, friendship with each other, the support like no other, man. Like I say again, him and his wife, very intricate bit, man. It's just life for us, man. My family, and just getting accustomed to things and just moving about and doing stuff at our speed, doing it how we like to do it. You know what I'm saying? And we get clients that feed the same way and stuff. So it's more hence the name Block Party is family. You know what I'm saying? So that's all in all what it is. Our that is my brother right there and stuff, man. Shit, you might not see the resemblance, but it's there. It's there. You know what I'm saying? But it's no other, and it's like that. And what I think is important, even before any of the stuff that's going on now, and that's more in hindsight, man. Just it's not like now it's showing a black guy and a white guy they kicking it. No, man, this is well before that. Like I think we were showing people back then that it was different and unique. And I know some people probably wonder how about, but let me tell you, man, that beautiful thing, it's the music, man, that's the foundational thing, the most universal thing that brings people together. And then you build upon those relationships, to being genuine with people, caring about what you're doing out there. You can't worry about numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many weddings can I do? So definitely quality over quantity, for sure. You know what I'm saying? That was a big deal. And then getting up there to be able to sustain, dog. I remember doing 5 weddings in a year at one point, and then getting to the 20s and the 30s and seeing this cat knocking out like 100 events in a year. Like, just the grind, and how he told me, I respected his grind of how he got in the game with it, how he approached them, and they were talking like no in the beginning. You understand what I'm saying? And or you got a shadow or something like that, and he became like their top dog. And he helped a lot of cats along the way. Very selfless cat, man. So Derek's got a ton of love in the industry, and he's had some great friends. And then I've met these friends that were once just Derek's friends, and this is his friend Wes. Now I'm starting to see and get more familiar where it's just this big circle of friendship and folks, and it's good when folks can say, yo, go check the block party out. They're great. You know what I'm saying? And I always appreciate the leadership that my man does when it comes to just the real nitty gritty, straight up and down. We sit down, we formulate stuff, we treat this like a business, like it is, and we still integrate the friendship, the family in between. You know what I'm saying? Our last trail walk, that was the truth. It was invigorating. We go out there, we sit there, we'll talk business, and then we'll go take a little walk or something. Hey Harry, I thought it was an intervention, dog. I didn't see the end of the walk, bro. They was like, Wes, you want me to go get the car? I was like, no, I can't have y'all clap me in, man. Let me chill for a minute. And we got through it. But it was just fun. So what I'm getting at is like, these are cats that I could be my very most comfortable around. And I think he feels the same with me. And same, and it's just, that's what I'm getting at. That's our relationship in a nutshell.
No.
Thank you, Wes, for coming on.
Word up.
Ladies and gentlemen, DJ Wes.
Peace.
Thank you, sir.
Peace.
We'll catch up with you soon.
Carry on. We about to continue the watch party, bro.
All right.
Peace. Catch.
I appreciate you, Harry.
Oh man, I thought that would be so nice to bring your partner in, and you guys just seem like, you clicked to a point to where you can think the same about all the parties that you do, and mainly weddings, and it's still baffling to me that you can do 70, 80, 90 weddings in a year. Some people here, DJs here wish they can get it, or maybe not, but I know a bunch of them are wondering, how do you get these weddings like this? You must be talking about a couple of weekends. It's only 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah. So I mentioned like biting a little bit of this guy's mix for the first wedding that I did. And, that's one of my influences of listening to this and saying that's a mix at a wedding. And these influences have something to do with like how we get from this amateur bedroom guy to actually this business, where saying like, I look at these people, this style, and say like, this can work at a wedding. And then looking at like, when I was in college, Girl Talk was blowing up, which if you're not familiar is this nerdy guy from Pennsylvania. And he basically DJs through Ableton of queuing, basically. He doesn't do any like record scratching, anything like that. It's all samples. It's all like queuing up different stuff to layer on top of each other. And a lot of it is like 80s rock and hip hop together. And then getting familiar with guys like Jazzy Jeff, who is an incredible open format DJ and can play to almost any crowd. But he asserts himself a little. He's like, this is my style. I can adapt a little bit. But he really can play anything and put different stuff together. And then, like I said, starting to get familiar with the Red Bull 3 style stuff, and that's just this whole other world on a global competition level. The best DJs out there of saying, here's 15 minutes, and it's not just these incredible scratches that I already know I will never be able to do, but it's also rooted in these ideas of like the best party rocker for 15 minutes and tone play and remixes and playfulness. And I think one of the coolest things with a wedding is it's not a club or a bar that has any sort of a vibe or street cred or anything like that. It's the couple. You're representing this couple, this family, this group in their music. It's more house party than club. And there's room in there to be a little goofy and playful and to do some really cool wordplay stuff.
Yeah.
So to have these influences and for me to say, like, that's incredible the way they can connect with all sorts of people, and to work on that style for myself, and then to run into Wes and to learn like his super diverse background and his depth in music. And I think that's where we started to get to, of saying like, all right, so we want to be party rockers who can play for anybody. And as Wes was saying a little bit too, this idea that respect for DJ culture, for hip hop, for great mixing is not limited to a type of community.
Right.
It's not limited to a certain wedding, a certain party, or any of that. And you have kids, you have black kids who grew up putting their emotions into rock and roll. Right. You have white kids who grew up putting their emotions into hip hop. And certainly like in our area, you can look at, all sorts of artists of saying like, whether it's Motown, whether it's Eminem, whatever it is, there's a huge musical background, even locally, that you tie into like, this was my first dance. This was what I banged out in my car in high school to, my first kiss, like the soundtrack that I listened to 1,000 times because my parents just kept letting me watch Frozen. Or The Lion King or whatever. And I know you can appreciate this a little of like nerdiness and nerd culture is also not limited to a skin color, a demographic, any of that. And there are these pop culture references that everybody appreciates. So when I take the Captain Planet theme song and it's like Earth, fire, and I juggle that a little bit, and then I'm like Earth, wind, fire, and here comes September underneath, and people are like, oh, it's a stupid joke. It's the dumbest thing. And who even remembers Captain Planet? But it's like 20 seconds that I get to have fun, and it's something that I can't do, like I said, in a bar, in a club. Right. But here, it's something that makes some sense, and it makes people feel like we're in this together. And I think saying that this stuff is universal, whether it's me or whether it's Wes, being able for these couples to have somebody who can authentically represent and appreciate the music that they do. Yeah. Like, I don't know what that song is, but let's
it sounds good.
Yeah, let's learn some new stuff. You get to nerd out with these people, and like I said, you grow up and you're like, oh man, like I love hip hop, and that's not really far outside of my bedroom. Right. Now at my wedding, I have one of the best like hip hop DJs in the Detroit area who has all this East Coast experience, who is now like authentically representing this, and we can talk about all this stuff, from Tribe to Run DMC and all this. And there's something very authentic in that with Wes, whether it's a white wedding or a black wedding or whoever, it's just people who appreciate what he does. And on the same token, there are people who are like, I love your mashups, your blends. Like, if I could get married in a Vegas club, I would do it, or at a music festival. And they're like, you're one of like my favorite mixtapes I've listened to, because I appreciate that. And so I think that's the concept that we came up with when we're going to start this.
Right.
Can this work? Does this niche make sense? Do enough people appreciate it? And I think they do. And then as Wes was saying, the next step was like, cool, we have this. This is worth something, because the company we just worked for was at about 1,300. So if we know that, I called all over the country. I asked guys in LA and New York, like I wanted to know what are the other turntable guys charging to do a really good wedding. So if they're in this 2,500, 2,000, 3,000, depending on the market and who they are and stuff, it's like, all right, that gives me an idea. Like that's who I'm competing with. It doesn't matter if that's not here in Detroit. We are trying to have something that can hold up at that level. What does their website look like? What is their style? What are their visuals? And so it's saying if we're going to be towards the top of the market, and we started at 1,750 and now we're at 1,900 as our kind of our starter approach.
Yep.
Of being able to say like everything else we do, I want to match where we're putting ourselves in the market. So our visuals should be great. Our website should be great. Like you don't look at a Mercedes commercial and say, no, that was a really budget commercial for this really nice car.
The best of nothing.
Right. So like everything somebody experiences, from the website to the mixtapes to our visuals on our site, should match this level of what our reputation is, what our price point is. So I'm not going to like bring a movie crew to somebody's wedding. And, instead I'm like, what if, one, we can introduce ourselves as a product. Two, we can give this thank you letter to the people who helped get us here, these industry people we've known for years.
Yep.
And we can just have a great time, but we're also we got this old recording studio in downtown that needed a lot of TLC to get it into a great spot. But it was this really cool space that had a really cool history. And then we set it up. We brought a friend in who did lighting, all this. It's still, if you go to our site, it's cheap plug, theblockparty.com. But if you go there, the landing page video is still that video from 5 years ago.
Wow.
Because we had somebody really talented that did the video. We had really talented lighting. We kind of invested in that initial because we wanted something that it's like we have a controlled environment that we can tell this story of what we do. And then we kind of went from there. And then it's like, how can I get reviews? And how do you keep building this network of people? But that was the start, is do we have a concept, a niche, a price point, and then building, the rest of it of how do you sell somebody? So if I have a good friend,
we have a question in the chat. How do you get the wedding? And this is all the business side of it. You're getting your website done. You're getting your advertising, which was the video. You're getting everything in place. Some people don't, but you guys were already working as wedding DJs while you were doing all of this stuff too, right?
Right.
So we have the question, DJ Tommy Lee, he's asking, how did you get the wedding? Did you advertise? Did you, what did you do?
It's a great question. So the reason that we're trying to build these things, and kind of the approach I took with our site, our branding, a lot of that is more as a finisher to a conversation than as a giant net. So you could take an approach of saying, I'm going to do Google AdWords, and I'm going to do all these DJ expos and pay money to be at those. And then we're going to sign up for the Knot and advertise there. And for me, I felt like, again, we had a little bit of a niche. We're trying to hit a certain type of couple because I want these people to feel amazing about what we're doing. I don't just want a random wedding who's like, I just want to get it done. It's like, well, we do something a little different. And they're like, whatever. I want people who are passionate, who are going to end up writing an amazing review, recommending me to their family and friends. We're going to grow this of saying, like, I want people who appreciate this. So with that in mind, we already had some friends in the industry. So planners and photographers get booked before a DJ. Venues get booked before a DJ. We have only had a handful of venues who put us on their preferred list, but they really like us. They really push us. So we didn't go in asking every spot like, hey, can I get on your list? But I think that's something where if you say, I want to DJ there, and you can get on their list, that's a way into at least a few. If you're one of those top people for a planner or photographer, that's a few. So they're sending somebody to my site now. I don't have to randomly catch something with that site.
Right.
Now it's like, all right, this person said they're amazing. And then they show up on my site and they're like, this site checks out. And now we have a conversation or we meet. And they're like, okay, you're not a crazy person. And so you check those boxes throughout, but those relationships have meant everything. If that planner is advertising on the Knot and I'm their number one or number two DJ, their advertising budget is now mine. That photographer, their advertising budget is now mine. And then in a lot of ways we chose, let's invest in those relationships. Let's send them a birthday card or a start of the year box of like treats, or let's get together for coffee, of sincere relationships. But you're doing this very intense thing of like, we get one shot to do this right. There's a lot that can go wrong. You want a team of people who are generally pretty random to work together well and to be able to problem solve well. And if that planner says, I like working with you, I like problem solving with you, I like knowing what you do, and I'm confident, it makes the day so much more enjoyable for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's my biggest answer. And then it's not just the photographers and the planners, it's been other DJs too. And now we're at the spot where we're the ones kicking a lot of these leads back out to other people because we're already full.
Nice, right.
But you can only do so many. And so when we had other guys, I'm like, that's the other like turntable guy. That's the guy who has amazing production. These are the really respected people. And now I'm also on their list. And when they were booked, they're like, hey, we can't do it. Go see Derek.
Working with other DJs. We got another question. Chris Gloss is saying, how important was it for you to identify and stick to a niche?
So I say niche in the sense that we are still super open format. Like that's the fun of what weddings are. 70 years of great music, everything from the 50s till yesterday, we can play it all.
Right.
So we're not in a niche to the point of where we're saying like we only do like certain like Middle Eastern wedding or Greek wedding or Korean or any of these. And a lot of times these come in with certain traditions and certain kind of flow to the day. And
so
we are happy, like we're happy to jump into that, but I think that in some ways we were kind of saying like we are open to doing just about anything, but really we want weddings where we get a chance to mash a lot of different stuff together.
You answered my question because I was going to ask, it brings up, do you guys only do weddings? if another party type came up, do you guys do that? Or like, no, it's not a wedding, so we don't do that?
Sure. So I mean, it's what we do best, and I think like you've talked about with the way our numbers and stuff are. Nobody cares that it's my third wedding of the weekend. It's their first that they've been dreaming about for 30 years. So and they don't care also that it's like my 40th of the year. They're like, again, it's my wedding. I don't care about those other people. So, you know, in the I just talked myself out of the question.
So you guys do more than weddings.
Got it.
Other parties come up, you do them.
Right. So I say that with how many weddings we do and stuff to say, like, we're trying to be careful because I want to bring it. To turn that around a little, I try to tell people, I'm like, everything else I have done till tonight is practice for this to be the biggest, best party I have ever done. From silly middle school dances to college house parties to 300, 400 weddings, it is all practice for this. And so I want to have the energy and I want to have kind of just the excitement to be able to make sure I take care of those weddings. So we don't go hunting for like a lot of bar stuff.
Right.
We're not hunting to be back out again on Sunday night, Thursday night, because our Fridays and Saturdays are pretty full. But corporate stuff, we do a handful. And usually it's a pretty specific situation where, you know, they kind of, again, they're looking for something a little different for whatever their corporate outing is. Because ultimately we are selling the DJing, the music, the vibes. We are not a production company. We're not selling a photo booth. I am not looking to bring in conference level sound and lighting, and there's companies who do. But we're more like we can handle your sound, but like, you know, we want you to feel good with the DJing first. So we've done a lot of that. We did a lot of school dances, which it's like, all right, make the party really hype, but like a private school dance, and are like, but you know, make sure nobody's grinding. And if they get too wild, then you got to shift the music to pull the energy back down.
You DJ with one hand tied.
Yeah, but it was also so fun to be able to do that, and to do that with Wes, because we were doing these high school dances at schools that had at least a little bit of diversity to them, and to be this white and black DJs together, I think connected with the kids in different ways. Right. We do different styles. We're kind of tag teaming and doing different genres and different mixes. And to be able to, I think, bring that example was really helpful. And also people would generally go to Wes with a request because I'm just like focused, and I guess I look too grumpy, and they're like, "Oh, he looks nice. Let me go ask for this song that they definitely cannot play because it is way too inappropriate. But I'm gonna see if I can sneak it by." And Wes is like, "No, I just told my daughter no on that like yesterday. Absolutely not."
Now, do you guys play together?
Yeah, when we can. So we usually get 2 or 3 weddings a year where we'll do stuff together, but we generally don't sell it that way. Right. And if we can't, that's fine. And frankly, like, I trust Wes to be able to handle just about anything on his own. We try to solve any of our big potential issues ahead of time, of like, go look at the venue, like what equipment do we need, those types of things. So we'll move some pieces back and forth. But, you know, we're both confident enough to be able to handle our own. So when we get together, it's more of like, thank goodness somebody else can carry some gear. somebody can bring just a little different style. It's hard. It's really hard because it is, these are 2 to 4 hour sets with wedding dancing. And so you have a rhythm with that, and you have kind of momentum with that, and you're feeling it as you go. So trying to share that, I love the guy, but sometimes I'll be like 40 minutes into my part of the set, and I'm like, yo, like you getting in? And he's like, dude, this is great. You're doing good. Are you like, I'll Steve Nash it. Like, how can I set you up here? But my brain is also like, I'm like, hey, Wes, I just one more song. I thought of the perfect song. And then 5 songs later. So I'm blessed because my dude is he's patient. He's patient with my crazy brain. But it's so fun, and it's so reassuring and reaffirming just to get to hang out with another DJ and kind of talk shop and be able to enjoy that together. So yeah, a few times a year when we can.
Yeah, that's what this community is for. So we can all talk shop and post pictures and post videos of other DJs DJing and funny memes and all that good stuff. So take us through. We're gonna start to wrap this up, but take us through a wedding 4-hour event in a few minutes. from when you get there, the type of music you play, to if they're dancing, if they're eating.
Sure. So I think 2 important things of just the way that we're approaching our weddings in general that maybe answer that in a roundabout way. But I think the first is our pricing. I think you can do your pricing however you want. It's an absolute mess all over the industry, and people experience very different things as a customer. So I think that can be very overwhelming if you're a customer coming to try to figure out how much do I have to pay for a DJ. We made a decision early on that we want to be as inclusive as possible, and we put our pricing right in the middle of our site. It's there if our competitors know, if your mom knows, it doesn't matter. Like we want to be very transparent because I think there's a reputation there's a reputation probably within this very community of like what is a wedding DJ and what you can actually do compared to this guy at the park in Philly or downtown New York or whatever. It's like, how do we run this very clean business and also bring great DJing? So on the clean business side, I'm trying to be very straightforward because I don't want to be that slimy wedding DJ. I want to show that I'm being very straightforward and honest of like, this is what we do, this is what we bring. So yeah, we are going to be there all day anyways. So I'm not going to get bent out of shape of 4 hours versus 6 hours versus 8 hours. The only person who cares about that is your couple and you. So if you're like, well, I'm going to dip after 4 hours, what else are you going to go do? And if that next 2 hours isn't worth it to you, then you should maybe change your pricing to include that. But I see guys who, and in these new days with the micro weddings and stuff,
right,
it's a little. But in general, those like, hey, I'll do 4 hours, and somebody looks at that and they're like, how do I even get a party out of 4 hours? So we've basically tried to take hours out of it. I've roughly said to people, like, if we have to do a full extra setup, that's $300. That's a separate thing. If I'm just adding a third speaker because the room is big or we have to do some weird stuff, my bride does not need to be a sound engineer. And I am not trying to be like, hey, if you upgrade to the Sparkle Unicorn package,
the unicorn package,
then I will wear pants. I will bring a good speaker. I'll even wear a top hat. Like, these are, as I said before, we're trying to treat these people like we did our best friends, our
Right.
family. Like, I have to get on the mic in front of your favorite people who don't know me at all. I'm the person who least belongs here. And I have to get on that mic and act like that's my best friend over there. And like, these are my people. I belong. This should be warm. And the couple should look back at me and be like, that's my dude. Like, that's
My
the guy I want to do it.
Yeah.
And so we've tried with our pricing to be really upfront with people and clear and saying, like, if we're doing it, we are going to make this sound and look great. Here's kind of our one price for that. And then with the relationship from there, we say, like, what do you want this to sound like? What are those must plays? What are your do not plays? What do you want Cocktail to sound like? And I get people who say, I'm overwhelmed and this is the last thing I want to work on. And they give me 2 songs and I'm like, great, I can read a room, take requests. Got it. I get people who are super passionate and say, here's my 100-song Spotify list.
Can you play this?
And the conversation that we have to have is just like, in both cases, you're trusting me to represent you well. And I'm not going to just take that paper and crumple it up, but trust me that maybe we don't get to all of this. But let's take the inspiration of this, the vibes of this. I want this to feel like your wedding. And not something that's generic and not the Derek show. I'm not on Jazzy Jeff's level quite yet. I can't say, hey, like, you hired Derek. This is the product. So I'm trying, instead of putting people into this box of saying, all right, now, like, this is the experience you get. How can I take my talent and experience and bend that around this vision that you have? How can we bring that to life? So there's some weeks that you have like flannel and a cowboy hat and it's a hoedown. And the next week, the person's like, I will hit you with my car if you play a country song. And you're, in both cases, you're kind of just saying, like, all right, I can cook for you. Like, I can do this. Like, oh, tonight we have a ton of little kids on the floor. Let's play the Hokey Pokey, because hopefully we'll play for them for 15 minutes and then they'll go tire out and fall asleep in the corner.
Crash.
And then the next week, it's like they're saying, I wish this could be, like I said, a Vegas club, or this is some very high-class place. You want a certain vibe with that.
Yeah.
And being able to adapt from the backyard to the country club. And I think that's musically, and then also just how we're presenting ourselves. One of the most valuable pieces of gear I think that I have is my suit. Both of us got fitted suits and paid a few bucks more to be able to do that, to get something that was going to fit nicely. Like the presentation from start to finish, we are trying to have be very clean, because last week there was another DJ at this nice spot and he sucked and he was a jerk and he made life hell for everybody. And then I walk in the door and I'm the next DJ to show up and they're like, oh, great, another one of you guys. And then on top of that, I mean, if we're being real with this, for somebody to see me come into a spot that is predominantly a white country club in the suburbs is going to be a different thing from Wes stepping in to that same spot.
Yep.
And in both cases, you are trying to immediately be able to show people, I got this. I am not your typical DJ. I know what I am doing. This is my full-time job, and we take this seriously. We have the gear for it. We have the experience for it. Like, I respect what you do and your role in this, running this venue. But that's been a huge thing of, like, you are always battling that last person who was there. You're trying to work with people who maybe are having a tough day and they just met you, and now we have to be partners for the day. So, yeah, I think that's a huge part of how our wedding days work of you want people very comfortable from the beginning. Because if something goes wrong, whatever that might be, but weddings are a thing, you wind it up and you let it go.
Yeah.
You can't do a lot that day. And so when I'm at a spot with a generator and the person who's supposed to put more gas in it isn't there, it wasn't my job. Like somebody, they were like, it'll be great. They'll be checking it. Wait, no, what? And it's like, oh, and you didn't actually plant. We're outside and there's no lighting. And now you have like a bartender who can't see anything. You have like a hot dog station that nobody can see anything. All right, let me bend a light this way. We'll bend a light this way. Okay, my speaker, I have a speaker that runs on battery. So now I'm back in college at a really nice wedding in the backyard. And I have an aux cord and virtual DJ. And here we go. Because your stupid generator doesn't run, and I have a battery powered speaker, so
wow.
You're trying to, like I said, you're trying to deal with a very stressful situation where you never want somebody to look at it and say like you're the one who screwed this up. You want that person to say like, no, we had coffee twice, and I know about his kids, and I know about his family trip, and I follow his Instagram, and like, you want people to feel like you're on the same page.
Right.
And like I said, that starts from the very beginning of, I get a photographer who says, this guy is super nice and great to work with, and he's a great DJ. And then they see my pricings right there. They see my mixes are right there. And it's like your high school math teacher.
Yeah.
How'd you get that answer? Show me the work. And that's what we're trying to do, and trying to show that to people so that we get to the day of and, you know, stuff happens and you're like, no, but that guy, he had my back from the beginning. We're good.
Yeah.
So,
and I thought this was important to bring you on to explain a lot of this, because a lot of the DJs, including myself at one time, I don't DJ anymore, but you know, you don't take this as a business. You're just going out, you're finding parties, or somebody will recommend you, and that's it. Your pricing is so flexible with the wind, and you want to either be that person where, you know, I'm at this level now. I done paid my dues already, but I'm at this level now, and this is where I am. I'm not bending, because, you know, with those pricing, it's hard to do something else. It's hard to do a backyard party for $1,900.
Yeah,
a wedding that could be cheap to somebody.
And that's something that we're always trying to feel out. And there are certain backyard parties for friends and stuff that we say like, I'm only going to get a few $100 for this, but it's worth me doing this because I like the person. The DJing itself is going to be fun today.
Yeah.
And it's worth it for my heart, for, you know, as much as anything, to say like, I know I'm losing a Saturday, but I think that's the thing that we've looked at of saying like, if I have a club job that's in the way of this, if I'm taking random parties or I'm compromising what I think I'm worth, and then like 3 days later, here comes somebody and they're like, hey, are you available on this date? They're like, no, I just booked like a stupid bar gig for $100.
A baby shower with 3 people.
Yeah. So that trust, and it's so hard. It is so hard to have faith in that. But once we were able to get going, and I think that's the hardest thing, is you have to plant so many seeds. You have to build these relationships, this reputation, these reviews, all this. But then once you get it going and you can say like, I know from June through October, those prime Saturdays, somebody will show up. And if they don't, my wife is going to appreciate that I'm home and we can travel that weekend.
Yep.
I mean, and sometimes it's worth, essentially you're saying like, I lost whatever, you know, somebody wanted me to do it for $1,000 and I said, no, we only do it for this. But to get that weekend, and again, I have 30 more on the back end of that. I still got to show up next week, 2 weeks from now. I got a triple in 3 weeks. And so that long term of like, I need to be great from January through December.
Yep.
So what am I going to compromise on? And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges when you are trying to pay your bills and you're trying to buy groceries and keep the lights on, all that on whatever you're going to make that week. That is so hard to have some trust of like, I just need to be patient because the big fish is there and I have the equipment, I have the experience, I can do this. I've gotten to that point, but like, I just got to be patient for that right fish to come by. Yep. And those dates to come together, and it's tough, but I'm super proud, I think, of where we've gotten because I wanted to do this full time, and I'm super blessed to be in a position where I can do this full time, where I have a partner who does this full time, where we got to a place where it doesn't matter if I go or Wes goes, the people he's going to work with, that planner, they know Wes now. The photographer, they know Wes now. And there are people, so maybe this is one of our last things, but why the block party? So for the name itself, I said like at a block party, which isn't that like the roots of hip hop anyways, with breakdancing and loops and everything else. But you're saying great music, great food, great people together. A wedding is the same thing. Like, let's get some food, some music, and some people we love, and let's hang out.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. And I love the concept of that for, like I said, for our weddings, where I hope there is a togetherness for that. And then when somebody comes in the front door, it's not, hey, so where's Derek? I see this DJ Derek business. It's like they come in my front door and I say, I'm booked this day. Hey, Wes, can you respond to this? So from the start until the end of their wedding, the entire block party, they feel like is Wes. They got the full experience. It's not my second in command because it's not. That's my partner.
It's your partner.
Yeah, and to them, they're like, and they send their friend, and they're like, "Yo, like, is Wes available?" I'm just a computer guy. Don't worry about me.
I'm just a help.
That's something I'm so proud of at this point. Where now we're in year 3, 4, 5, where it's like you have your own seeds that you've planted, where people's whole experience of the block party is not anything to do with me, and people still love it and still dig that concept. And like I said, with that name, at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what we're trying to live up to. And whether that's me or whether that's Wes, it's the same thing of like good music, good people, good food, and a great time together.
That's your recipe for a good wedding. A wedding DJ performance. Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on and sharing, you know, the wedding and business aspect of it. I know we didn't touch on everything and couldn't go into one thing for about 2 hours, but
yeah,
you know, just to get a overview and see that there's all types of DJs, and you guys chose this wedding as wedding DJ as your guys' vehicle. So
I think for anybody else, because ultimately I'm so like humbled and honored to be able to get to chat with you and the people who watch this, who I have immense respect for. And most people have way more talented hands and music concepts than I ever will. And I look up to so many people in this group. So it's such an honor. But I have always tried to approach this of saying, like, this is something I really believe in, that great DJing can be a part of weddings. it's one of the few times in life where you get people together and you can play anything. And you have grandma out there with her youngest granddaughter, and you want both of them to be having a great time. And so I really encourage, if people are unsure, like I think this is a incredibly legitimate place where the art form of great DJing can live and can be celebrated, and where you can get paid for it. And it is not easy. We are all in different markets. We're in different situations. But I can't tell you how much of a cheerleader I am for great DJs getting paid for what they do well, and having great experiences with this, and bringing, like I said, some of what they do best to a place that will really appreciate it. So I hope that this continues to be an art form. Like, it's crazy with the pandemic right now, and it's many groups, and we're not dancing a lot, but I think there is music that can unite big groups of people, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do as an open format DJ. And so whether it's stretching into different genres or whatever it takes, but I think that investment that you need to get into weddings of, I need speakers, I need a mic, I need all this, like, don't shortchange yourself on what you're doing in putting that together, and figure out how you can get paid for that gear. And have that concept of first, like, last thing really is, like, don't get caught up in, like, I need to go get, like, all this brand new shiny stuff, and I need to get all these crazy lights, and I need to get, at the end of the day, like, you want to get paid for your music, and that's what makes people dance. Nobody dance if you flick the light on and off. You know, nobody dances because you have some foam or you put some smoke on the floor.
Yeah.
Dance because you drop that beat and the first few notes come on, and they're like, that is the song that I heard when I went to my grandma's for dinner on Sundays. That's the song that I grew up with my brother with. Like, that's where I think weddings really are. And so I think not getting caught up in all the hype of, like, you need to do it this way, and you need to keep up with people by offering 40 different things and a photo booth and balloon animals and magic tricks. Just be a great DJ.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for you already, as that, like I said, get paid and keep kicking ass.
Thank you. And I'm glad you said that, because it's a few of them out here, including me, who needs to hear that. You know, don't shortcut yourself, because it was brought up, you know, in the early episodes about the pay aspect. And some of them are saying, like, you and stay at your level, you know, don't veer away. But then I was being a little devil's advocate and saying, you know, what about that brand new struggling DJ? You don't know if they're, you know, they taking this so their lights can stay on. What do you tell that person? Do you tell them, no, stick to your guns, or are they going to take that $1,900 thing down to $350?
Yeah, I think there's I started out on Craigslist making almost nothing, and then, you know, I was in a company where I'm making 300. Like, my staff were making about 300, 400 a week, to where we are now, and I think you just need to be careful with that. But if that's what pays your bills that week, to go do that $300, like, that's kind of where you need to be. And I think what we are finding right now is, you know, what your availability is for the next couple of weeks, and what somebody just rescheduled a wedding to next week, or a party or whatever, and go jump into that to make those few bucks. But in the long term, as this comes back around, because I still think, like, weddings are going to be a thing, and we are all in such different places on so many levels. And I do weddings for like Republicans and Democrats and
Whoever.
everybody. It's not ultimately, it's not a political thing. It's not a cultural thing. It's like everybody, this is a huge thing. So weddings are going to be back at some point. And for that young DJ, I would encourage that same thing that both Wes and I tried to do of like find that mentor, bother that person to get in with them and grow into the industry, because we are all ultimately, like I said, my business really got going because the first and second best DJs were like, I can send stuff to you.
Mm.
And our stuff has grown because I got to a place where I was booking enough to be able to say, I'm not available, but here's Wes. And now Wes is in a place, and we're both in a place where we book enough, now we send it elsewhere.
Right.
Whether it's coming, into my home and being a part of this family or doing your own thing, but making sure those other people who are in that same, niche that you are, that same area, make yourself feel felt so that you're getting those looks, you're getting those recommendations, you're getting make those relationships.
Yeah.
And that's still something we can do right now where you can go, somebody could show up on my site and be like, yo, I super dig your mixes. Can you check out one of mine? Or, I'm getting into this, or, even I have this, I'm just getting into weddings. I think I need certain gear. Can I borrow that? Can I rent that? Whatever.
Yeah.
And when you reach out, me and Wes are huge music nerds. You're a huge music nerd. There's so many people who are way more excited to talk to somebody, to work with somebody, than to push somebody away.
Right.
And so I think it's that networking and that reaching out. I think you're going to find somebody wants to help you out, and that can so quickly turn into now you're my main person that if I'm booked, I want this to go to you. So yeah, I think there's a lot of long-term seeds that you can still be working on right now, even if that booking for this week doesn't come in.
Yeah. We have to have you come back so we could just talk about the networking and building the relationship aspect of, and it can apply to anything, but we're going to apply it to the DJ world since that's what you do. And I think that's very important to build that relationship. I have to build and constantly build, this isn't the first time you've heard from me. We've spoken already. And after this, we'll still speak. This is not a one and done, I get you on here and that's it. I forget about you. It's not like that. You have to maintain those relationships because you don't know where things go. So
absolutely.
On that note, let's wrap this thing up. I appreciate you coming, Derek from the Block Party, representing Detroit, and we'll get this set up for another time where we can bring you back on and talk about that relationship part and the networking part.
Of course.
Derek, thank you so much. You have a great night. Hold on while I close this out. And that's it. We had DJ CJ come on and say, hey, y'all. What's up, kid? All right, bro. I will see you in a second.
For sure.
So we wrapped this interview up with Derek Hall with the Block Party with DJ interview. Very interesting. You have to look at this. So we'll be back next Tuesday, as always, 8-ish, with another guest, another special guest. You guys have a great night and stay safe, and we'll see you soon.